Good evening, and welcome to the Nobody Ask Me Guy Show. Guys, I'm your host, Melvin KCLR. You know how we do it on this show. We don't waste people's time with cookie cutter questions and gossiping about people and other people's business and all of that. Because if you're like me, I have enough trouble just trying to keep me in line. So we certainly do not waste your time on this show with a lot of gossip and wasted time. But this evening, we have a special treat. And as you guys always know, we like to tell our new audience, we'd love for you guys to go and like the Nobody Asking Me Guy show on YouTube and subscribe. And unlike other shows, there is no subscription fee. So we always ask for your support there. But listen, back to the real business. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us this evening Brother Anthony E. McDonald Sr. Brother McDonald Sr. has a program called Leaders of Men. He's from Berkeley, California, was raised in East Oakland, which he attended high school in Brooklyn, New York, Crown Heights, and he worked for 30 years in warehouse business. He's also married with 3 wonderful children. He has a nonprofit organization, which he'll talk with us about. It's a process serving business. He's also written a book called The Big Black Man, Food, Family, and Friends. And the brother is still a young pup. So we're going to welcome Brother Anthony E. McDonald Sr. Brother McDonald, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm well, man. Thank you so much for having me, man. I super appreciate you, brother, and making me smile.
Hey, man, listen, that's what we want you to do, man. There's enough anxiety to go around, so we want you just to sit back, relax, and enjoy our audience. Without further ado, because they certainly didn't come to hear me, brother. Brother McDonald Sr., when I was looking at your profile and I saw this very interesting title that said Leader of Men. And we said, we've got to talk to this brother. Can you kind of just walk us through a little bit how the process came about?
Yes, sir. I had lost my brother some years ago. He got killed walking home. And I lost my mom. And so it sent me into a depression, so to speak. I was in the garage one day and I couldn't get out of the depression. And I'm talking to God. I'm like, I need something. And then funny story is that I hear Steve Harvey come on the TV and he says, stop running from your gifts, your dreams. And I start to think about myself. What are my gifts? What are my dreams? I left school early and I didn't read my first book until I was 40 years old, and I started just thinking. And so my mom always helped, she was like the mother of the neighborhood. And me growing up, I hang and bang slang with a whole gang of cats, grown men and letting them live at my house and all of that. So just helping people, it's like, it's in my blood, man. So I thought, how could I turn that into, into a business or something, And then I started on an educational thing. Don't laugh at me, but I can't do algebra. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I went to go get a business license. I already had a business license, but the guy told me I didn't need a degree to do mentoring, to do counseling. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, just go ahead and fill out the application and go from there. He asked me, did I have a name for it? I said, yeah, Leaders of Men. He said, I like it, but do somebody own it? And I said, I don't know. So I went around the corner and secured the name and did that. And once I created it, the wheels start turning. You start building, and you're like, wait a minute, I could do this and I could do that, and then I was like, wait a minute, I could turn it into a nonprofit. And how do I do that? And I called LegalZoom, and LegalZoom, they helped me out, and I was sort of taking some money out of our bank account, my wife and I's bank account, and she noticed money was missing. And I said, yeah, I'm starting a nonprofit. She was like, what? I said, yeah, it's called Leaders of Men, this and that, that and that. And of course, she supports me. She married a dreamer. I done had a bunch of business ideas and those things. So anyway, just once I turned it into the nonprofit, and then once I did that, a year and a half later, COVID hit, shut us down. And you couldn't rent buildings and those things. And So I'm that person that have the vision. So I started going to the parks and teaching young men how to barbecue. Having reading in the park because of my reading. So I started, giving that little kids, giving them books and teaching them how to read and inviting them up to read in front of a crowd, and not really a crowd, but an audience. And it's some of the coolest stuff. But I started utilizing the parks and just started visioning what could I do to help our young men. And one thing that helped me growing up, especially in Brooklyn, was respect. You couldn't walk down the street unless you was respectful and tough and all of those things. And I wasn't the tough guy, not at all, man. I'm blind in my left eye, and I was a skinny dude with long braids in my hair. So, um, but I knew respect was everything, and that's our motto is respect is everything. So that's kind of in a nutshell, and the evolution of leaders of men. So.
Well, brother, that's fantastic, man. Great start. Listen, you alluded to earlier, and first of all, let me back up and offer my condolences to you because I know anytime we lose a parent, that of course is devastating and heart wrenching, and a sibling as well. So I'd like to offer my personal condolences to you in your loss of your mom and your brother. Now,
Thank you.
speaking of being a visionary,
Mhm.
many people don't get that. And you've shared with us that you have these things going on in your head and you want to work through some things. And I never like to accentuate the negative, but I do want to ask this question so we can get this out of the way and get on to all the positives. Did you face a lot of opposition of people? Because I have a lot of young people that listens to me, which I'm happy about. People saying, "Oh man, well, who are you? And what are you? How you think you're going to lead somebody?" Did you have any of that kind of foolishness standing in your way, or has it been a pretty smooth transition?
Nothing is smooth in life. We already know that. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've lost a lot of friends because they didn't believe in me, or they thought I was joking around, or they're like, "You can't do that." And one friend asked me she said, "Well, who are you? Why would somebody listen and come out and those things?" And you just kind of like, wow, I thought we were cool. But once again, growing up, East Oakland and then Brooklyn, you got the thick skin. And then, my mom always tell me, Anthony, wipe your eyes, and don't worry about nobody. And you can't change nobody. You just believe in you. And one thing she always used to say is, "You're the man. You're the man." Like I tell you, I got hit with a pencil when I was 4 years old, so I'm blind in my left eye. And I was called everything from cat eye to one eye B and dead eye and those things. So you had to grow the thick skin, and you had to kind of believe in yourself in that sense. But going into the doing something else, going against the grain, doing something that nobody understands. You could understand what I'm saying is that when you're doing something that your friends or family are doing, everybody's going to look at you in a way, and you can't do that. But the great thing about it is that my wife and my children supported me. That's the great thing. That helps me still to this day because they believe in me. My daughter is my creative director. She's my executive assistant at both of my businesses. My son does my videos and editing. My wife helps out when she can. But those things, though, you just grow the thick skin and you just try to keep going.
Yeah. Well, brother, that's very inspiring because as always, we share on this show. We believe in positivity. We believe in growth. And when we speak to brothers such as Brother Anthony, we always want our audience to hear from you because far too many times is that they're what we call, now I didn't invent this word, but the negaholics. And we don't waste our time with the negaholics. So as you're speaking with us and as you're sharing with us and you talk about the loss of your eye and the people calling your names and you having to have the thick skin and that kind of thing. Was there ever a point, Brother Anthony, where you basically say, well, hey man, the heck with this. I don't even want to deal with it. Was there ever a time, I know you've spoken a lot about perseverance and a lot about your mom saying, well, Anthony, wipe your eyes and that kind of thing. Was there ever a low point that kind of got in the way?
Yes, sir. All the time. When we can't get some kind of funding, when the community is not behind you, when you're looking for corporate sponsorship and they're like, once again, who are you? And you're just like, well, what am I doing? Am I doing it wrong? Or I don't understand the business part, or I don't understand how to go after a certain, a certain sponsor or a certain grant or those things. We always going to have doubt, but I read someone that said endeavor to persevere, to just keep going, you know, and when you understand what that means, Malcolm X right behind you says, every defeat, every heartbreak, every loss contains its own seed, its own lessons, how to go the next time. You know what I mean? And so I taught myself that part, and I keep listening to that in my head, and I teach it to my children, those things. So, and that's another thing. It's a lesson not just for me, but for my children to see me doing what I'm doing. That to me, I already won, to be honest. So
And
yeah.
that's again fantastic. And I didn't share with you, but when you see me looking this way, I'm looking at my other monitor and I'm looking at the thumbs and the hearts going up and the hand claps and that type thing, brother. Listen, let's just keep this thing rocking. Now, many times, especially with our children, our children sometimes don't see us as that person that's really trying to make it happen. They just see us as dads.
Yeah.
And, and I love to talk about the children when we're talking to dads, especially, well, no disrespect to moms,
Right.
but we all know the story, right?
Right.
Black dads and not kids. So I don't even want to waste your time with that foolishness. But when you are sharing with your children, do you think they have a full scope of the fact that dad actually is trying to make a positive difference, not only in our lives as his children, but also in the lives of others?
I do, because with they're on the journey with me, right? I don't I didn't grow up with my father, so I mean I knew what he did and those things, and but my mom, she didn't hide anything. We grew up in shelters, man. In San Diego, we was $5 for all to feed all of us. You know what I mean? And so she didn't hide anything. And so with me and my children, I don't hide anything. I don't have to lie to them. You try to shelter them, but if I shelter them in a certain way, they're not gonna understand the blood, sweat, and tears. You know what I mean? They walk into a room where dad is crying. You know what I mean? And dad, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna work it out. They're my cheerleaders. You know what I mean? And I'm their cheerleaders. I call it Team McDonald. No matter what they say, from the rooter to the tutor, we're gonna be together. You know what I mean? And so, and even when their friends come over here, and their friends like to come over here, like my friends when I was growing up like to come to my house because my mother was that nurturer, right? And my mother called our house the safe place. You know what I mean? And so their friends come over here, and their friends are involved when we have events. They like to come out, and when we have our teen summits, and some of them get on the microphone and talk about what's going on with them and how Mr. McDonald helps me through this, and I could always talk to Mr. McDonald, those things. So, I'm an open book, man, and I don't ever want to lie to my children about anything, because it's just real life. We call it straight talk, you know. So
Beautiful, brother. Well, listen, perfect segue. Let's talk about let's talk about Big Black Man. I was intrigued also by the title of the book. So let's dive right into that bad boy, brother Anthony, and share with our audience about it from the cover, if you'd like. If you have a copy of it, you'd like to show, or and obviously, definitely before we go and now, you can tell them how you're going to how they can purchase that book and the whole nine. Great cover. Now, On that cover, is that a picture of one of your children?
No, that's me.
Oh, that's you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's me.
Oh,
1970.
okay. Okay. Yeah, well, that's nice. Okay.
1971.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So,
Fant-
so the book, I wrote the book actually on my phone, right? I'm one of those cats. I try to use the computer and all of this and all of that, and I do okay. But right before, I can't remember what birthdays, a couple of years ago, um, a friend of mine, he's a writer, he's an author, and he was writing all these books. And I was like, man, I would love to write a book. He was like, Ed, you got amazing things to say. Just put it down. Right. And I was like, well, okay, let me give it a shot. And my wife would say, I completely rushed the book. I completely rushed it. But it was before my birthday, and it was before my 55th birthday. And I just wanted to do something. I wanted to complete something, right? And the book is just about my life, some of the things that we're talking about here, some of the things that we grew up, some of the hardships, but some of the great things in that hardships. So we're African American men, and we've been through some pain. We've been through the struggles. Us as Black people, we've been through struggles, but in our struggles, we seem to persevere, right? We tend to find good things in that. And with me, in our hardship was food. It's like every time I turn around, there's food, right? And when I was 12 years old, working for an Italian, no, I was like 10 years old, working for an Italian lady in East Oakland, and I would cut her grass, and she raced greyhounds, and I would wash her car, and I'd cut her grass and help her build cabinets. Anyway, she showed me how to make spaghetti with Italian sausage. I never heard of Italian sausage before, So I was like, wow, and then we moved to San Diego, and we all lived in one hotel called the Keystone Hotel. And you got maybe 7 families in one hotel, one kitchen, one bathroom. Our family lived in, man, maybe a 8 by 8 room in that hotel. But downstairs in the kitchen, it was Mexican people cooking Mexican food. It was Irish people cooking, people from Ireland cooking, that food. It was an Asian family, and they're making literally egg rolls. I never seen this before, right? And then we moved to New York, where my family is from Kingston, Jamaica. My father was born from Kingston, Jamaica. My grandfather's from Puerto Rico, and so my grandmother's making peas and rice and jerk chicken and those things, and you got all of these different nationalities of food, and then you understand how food goes into everything. When somebody's getting married, they celebrate with food. When somebody dies, they celebrate with food. It's just all of these things. Everything is surrounded by food. I never met a mean person just eating food. Somebody that's mad, tearing it up, and then they mad, but they're eating, and food just makes you happy, and that's why I named it Food, Family, and Friends. It all goes into one. And then the big black man, when I was younger, 12 years old, I understood that my mom told me I understood that the world sees you right now at 12 years old as the big black man. You're feared because of who you are. And I never forgot that. And I let my children know the same thing. When you walk out this house, you understand who you are, right? You have to understand who you are. And so I know who I am. And then growing up in New York, the 5% is knowledge of self. You have to have knowledge of self. And but the big black man is just a stereotype on how the world looks at you. So that's kind of the book in a nutshell. So yeah.
Well, hey, brother, listen, that's great. And what I did not share is that if you have a passage you'd like to read, or something you'd like to bring to us from the book, then feel free to do that as well as we move, because you certainly done an excellent job of giving a synopsis of what the book is about and how the process. Now, in doing that, and in your writing, you mentioned you rushed through the book. Now, and this is for my audience. As a writer, I hear what you're saying. Believe me, I hear you. But if you kind of explain for our audience when you say you rushed through the book, what exactly are we expressing?
So I left a lot of things out. I
Okay.
really left a lot of things out. Um, there's a lot of stories in my life, right? A lot of ups and a lot of downs. Um, um, a lot of friends that we lost. I could have shared a lot more. I could have shared a lot more. Me that just meaning I did leave a lot of things out, especially with my father not being there and my father being a aircraft mechanic, him
Mhm.
being in the Navy and United Airlines 38 years. But he never taught me anything. He didn't teach me how to protect myself. He didn't teach me how to love. He didn't teach me how to, care for a woman, open a woman's door and those things. I had put it like this: some years later, not too long ago, my father's passed away now, and me and my family were camping. We like to go camping, right? And so my father, I get this phone call from my father. Says, "Anthony, this is your father. I'm in California because he lives in Florida." He says, "I'm in California. I'm not too far from your house." And I was like, "Well, I'm camping. We're leaving camping right now, headed home." And so we on the road. And I get to the house, and they're waiting. Him and his wife are waiting outside, and they had never met my children before. And so I made a phone call to get my brother's children. And so anyway, I made all of this food. Turns out my father is a great cook, right? It turns out the great cook. And I could have put these things in the book. And he told me one time, he says, in that time, he says, Anthony, when you were 12 years old, um, and this made me feel a certain way. He said, when you were 12 years old, you asked me, could you come live with me? And I said, I did? I didn't know. I don't remember. He was like, yeah, you did. And I said, well, what did you say? Obviously, I didn't go. And he said, your mom needed you. Right. And I didn't really kind of know how to take that. And so as time go on, those things never leave your mind. You process it and you process it. And what does that mean? But what he didn't know is that I needed him. I really, really needed him. I had a terrible childhood in that sense. You know what I mean? I had a terrible childhood and I really needed him. And I could have put those things in the book and other things I really could have, some of the things that me and my brothers went through that youngsters should just never go through. We went through some hard times, man. And I could have put some of those things in the book. And my wife was like, you can share those things. And I was like, I don't know how people would take that, you know what I mean? And how they would look at me, you know.
May I
But
interrupt?
yes, sir.
May I interrupt?
Yes, sir.
People would love that because people need to hear your story. And as a writer, I would suggest very strongly that you do a revised version or just do a volume two, because everything that you're sharing, and you might have saw me kind of glancing here because I want to see the reaction of my audience. And thumbs are going up, my brother, hearts are going up, and sad faces are going up. So that in and of itself expresses that people need to hear that story. As you know, many of us live similar stories, but it doesn't affect us similarly. Some people are affected differently. And what you're sharing, I'm so happy that you shared what you shared, because a lot of thumbs started going up when you made this statement. You said, my father said my mother needed me. I didn't know how to take that. However, he didn't understand I needed him. You see, that's a very, very, very poignant statement that you're making. And I'm just looking at the reaction of my audience. And I can think of all the millions of people, Black boys and white boys and Asian boys and Puerto Ricans, etc., need to hear that, because far too often, men do not step up whether we admit it or not as dads. And we make excuses for not stepping up. I'm speaking from experience from my own father, just as you're sharing. we make excuses for not stepping up, and we place the blame literally on either the mother for whatever reason, however they choose to do it, or on a job, or I was having a tough time myself, never taking responsibility for the trauma they caused in our lives. So allow me to encourage you live as we're talking and the audience is looking, is that part two or revised version of that needs to be written.
Yes, sir.
So please, I just wanted to share that with you because the hearts and stuff were going up so fast. I wanted to capture the moment while and they've been in tune all night, but I wanted to capture that moment. So please continue.
Yeah, no, just about that, and some of the things in the book that I really did want to share about. One of the things was as a crazy time in my life. I was 17, just moved from Brooklyn, New York, and I was in an interracial relationship, right? And my family didn't understand it. My friends didn't understand it. I didn't understand it, to be honest. I had never, was anything like that. Did anything like that. And I remember uh, my mother told me one time. She said, and I never heard this out of my mom's because my mom loved everybody. She says, "If you go to LA with that white girl, don't come back to my house." And I was like, I couldn't believe it. This is a woman who's helped everybody, every color, every nationality. But I guess when it's happening to you and your family, when you're going through those things. And she ended up loving the young lady. She ended up loving the young lady and those things. But her main concern was, Anthony, you don't understand the hate that's in the world. You
Yeah.
don't understand what you're in for or what you're setting yourself up for. And she was right. I didn't, because in that relationship turned out to be a 10-year relationship from 17 to 27. And we went through some hate. I mean, her family and friends, my family and friends, that was really crazy, and it would make it so even more crazy that the world has completely changed now to where it's normal and regular to be in a relationship with a different culture, and people they still gonna kind of look at you a little sideways, but they're not gonna really concentrate too much on, well, in 1984, 1985, they really looked at it, really looked down upon it, man. So, but it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot. It made me have thicker skin. It made me have more knowledge of self. It made me more of a protector because I'm a protector. And anybody that I love and anybody that's around me, I don't care who it is, I'm going to protect. So that it brings that more out of you. One thing though, my godfather, rest in peace, Reverend Eugene Bryant, and he says, "Listen, man, you know what you're setting yourself up for. You don't know what you're setting yourself for. I'm going to tell you, but I got your back, no matter what, as long as you're happy." And he told me he was my father. My godfather was my father. You know what I mean? From time to time, I could always count on him to give me straight talk. And so he kind of walked me through that. He kind of walked me through that, and he supported me. He just had my back on that part, though, man. I got to give much praise to my godfather, man. Because that was some scary times, man. Me, getting, let's just say, jumped by a bunch of white cats, and I'm in the wrong place. You know what I mean? Me having to fight a bunch of black cats to get them away from my girl. You know what I mean? Those things. So you've seen it from both sides, and I could have elaborated that in the book. Like I said, it's a lot of things that I left out, a lot of tough times, but I think I wanted to concentrate more on food, because it's a lot of different recipes in that food in the book, Jamaican peas and rice and different nationalities of food and those things. So I think I left it light, but it's I could elaborate it a lot more, man. But I think I just wanted to concentrate on some of those things. One thing I did hit on was um, losing one of my best friends. He got shot 8 times when he was 18 years old. And I was supposed to go with them that night to go kick it in Ocean Beach in San Francisco. I was 19, he was 18, and they all came to my house and they said, "Hey man, come with us." And we're going to hang out in the city. And I was like, man, I got to go to work in the morning. I got to go to work in the morning, and I didn't go. And he got shot 8 times, man. And that messed me up right there. That's one of my best friends, man. But I did share that in the book. He happened to tell his mother that he had got killed and those things, and it still hurts to this day. It still hurts to the day. Leonard Gazelle Prince, that's my brother, man. That's my brother. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, man, you have a lot of powerful things, which if I can go backwards now and go back to leaders of men, you certainly have the credentials because of the life that you're sharing with us, that you walked through. I wanted to address earlier, but I want you to get through some of the story. Is when you were talking about maybe not having some of the alphabets behind your name.
Yes, sir.
Alphabet, and I tell people all of the time, and I have a few alphabets behind my name, but those alphabets can never replace lived experience.
Yes, sir.
I'm a very strong advocate of, quote, formal education, unquote. However, I think a lot of times, especially as Black people, we seem to forget that even if we go to these various universities and get all these master's degrees and doctor's degrees and all of that, it still does not remove us from being Black men.
Right.
And a lived experience is certainly underrated. And people have a tendency to look down their nose on people and try to pass judgment and that kind of thing because they've not have these large degrees and all that kind of stuff, brother. So I just want to give you your accolades again. I want to give you accolades live because having worked with young men, that's been my career. The high school principal, working with I don't call him Jim Brown, working with Mr. Jim Brown and with his American program. I didn't work in his program, but I have a program called Dare to Be Positive, and we kind of part of some things. And so I'm just sharing with you is that I want to encourage you live and nationally to not be discouraged. I know you're just really getting started, and we want to encourage you to continue to move forward and continue to push because you certainly have something to offer. And that's something that you have to offer. It's called life, and it's called the lived experience. And no matter what anyone says, is that nothing replaces a lived experience. Then you can have all of the PhDs and the DDDs and the IRDs and all the Ds.
Yes, sir.
They
Yes,
do not. They
yes,
do
sir.
not replace a lived experience, and they certainly don't replace pain. So, and that's why I said, let me go back a moment. When you talk about leaders of men, you've mentioned teen summits and that various situations like that. Do you guys have an active recruiting mechanism that you put in place as far as trying to gather these young men, or do you work with schools, or are they community centers, or just many times friends of your children or neighbors and things of that nature?
So I'm a part of the church over here, St. Stephen's CME Church, and what I do is I just put it on Facebook. They let me use a room over there. Pastor Isom over there at the time. I was looking for a place to do the mentoring, after school mentoring. And he was like, well, you got a space here at the church. I can give you a space here. And I thought he was talking about the big room. And I was like, wow, I got vision, man. We can do this and that. He's like, hold on, calm down, calm down. He took me to the back of the church. He was like, this is your room right here. So it was a small room. And I was like, oh, man, it kind of brought me down off the high horse. And I was like, and then my wife was like, kind of slapped me on my head. She was like, what are you talking about? This is great. Look, do what you do. So I went home and I thought about it and I prayed on it. I was like, man, I went back to the church and I was like, God, I'm tripping. I am so tripping. And I took that room, or we took that room, my wife and my children, and we took that room and made that a beautiful room with inspirations on the wall and pictures on the wall and all of these things and some new furniture. And it's like, wow, okay. And then and so I just put it out there on Facebook or different social media. And as far as the schools go, to be honest, I've introduced it to the schools. Once again, they looking at me like the big black man. You know what I mean? They don't I don't know if they don't understand me or I don't understand them.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to teach youngsters how to play basketball, football, baseball, those things. I'm just trying to talk to them about respect, self-respect, self-management, those things. And but they would rather have no disrespect, but they would rather have the retired white police officer, his mentoring program. They don't want mine. I've talked to the city council. They don't want to give me grant money to further my program. So I just sort of, we just made 6 years, right? And I just sort of just kind of just keep going. You know what I mean? Word of mouth. A lady seen me in the store today and she was like, "You're leaders of men." I said, "I'm Anthony, but yes, I'm leaders of men." And that makes you smile. That gives you more purpose. When people say, "Hey, Mr. McDonald, can you talk to my son or can you talk to my daughter?" Those things, that right there, that means the world. So that's kind of how I do it. And our last class, our summer program, we had like 8 or 9 young men that got participation certificates and shirts and hoodies and hats and those things. And the best thing about it is when the mom says, "Mr. McDonald, I had a 30-minute conversation with my son. I've never had a 30-minute conversation with my son." And he talked about all kinds of things. You know what I mean? And that's, to me, that's everything right there. We had a teen summit where the youngsters, one of the youngsters in front of a crowd started talking about how his mother's boyfriend was bullying him. And his mom is sitting right there, and you would think that she would be embarrassed, that she would be, fall back. And no, she didn't do that. And it gave them an opportunity to come together and talk about it and how he was traumatized over that. You know what I mean? And those things. So I find my joy in those things. Even with my own daughter, her being a part of the Teen Summit a few years ago, and I didn't know she suffered from self-love. She didn't love herself or appreciate herself. That gave us an opportunity, my wife and I, to sit down with her and go through what she was going through and let her know, hey, Dad talks to a therapist. I don't because I go through some stuff, and you should talk to a therapist. And now she is talking to a therapist, and it helped her. So once again, something about being honest, something about something about letting a youngster know that it's okay to ask for help and you're not by yourself. I think not just with youngsters, but everybody needs to hear that. You know what I'm saying? You're not in it by yourself. You gotta have the empathy part. Somebody's going through some worse times than you're going through. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying forget about what you're going through, but if you're listening to them, you're like, wow, you know what? How can I help? You know what I mean? So I know
Absolutely.
I know that's a lot, but yeah.
No, no, brother. No, no. Listen, I'm going to say to you again, we want openness on the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. That's what we need, exactly what you're sharing. And allow me to say to you again, you can have all the DDDs and all the PAs, all the stuff you want. Nothing outweighs a lived experience. As a former high school principal, as a person that works with young people and that kind of thing, brother, let me tell you, the saddest thing to me is what you just explained, is because we get so high and mighty, we feel as though Anthony has nothing to share, when quite frankly, Anthony have the most to share. No knock on the police officers. I have many of them in my family, and I have many of them that are friends. And having been a retired police officer does not qualify them to reach the children. That's number one. Or having somebody that have gone and taken a few classes. That's why I started off by saying earlier, Anthony, I'm a strong advocate for education. However, people try to write other people off because they don't have the expertise and because they can't touch a child like you can touch a child. So they think their thinking is your thinking, when in fact, the two are not the same. So I want to encourage you in that manner. Sadly, I've seen it up close and personal. I deal with that quite often before I retire as a high school principal with my superintendents and people like that, because it's the Anthonys of the world that will reach our children a lot faster and be much more effective than a retired police officer, than someone to come in and say, well, hey, I have this curriculum. I went to college and I studied this and I studied that. It still has nothing to do with a person being able to connect with children. It still has nothing to do with a person have lived experience and can actually talk about. Anthony, perfect example. I'm one of those guys, and I have to make this personal to address you fully to let you know why I appreciate you so much. I never drank, I never smoked, never did drugs, any of that. And I'm telling you right now, with all of the work and stuff that I've done with gang members and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, my voice is never louder than the guy that has experienced it and come through it. Never. No matter what I say, they're very receptive. I've had a lot of success. I thank God I've had a lot of success doing this work. But the person that has the lived experience is always as valuable, if not more valuable, than the person that have the academic experience. And people don't understand those two coexist. But because people's minds are so narrow, we keep trying to separate the two. That's why there's so much difficulty in 2024, because it's just what you're saying. So hear me today, Brother Anthony. As I said, this is about Anthony McDonald Sr. However, your story, brother, your story needs to be heard. People need to know who you are. People need to listen to you. People need to hear you. You've shared with us in this short time highs, lows, frustrations, successes, all in just a little short time we've talked. The pain that you deal with and dealing with from the loss of a loved one, discovering things about your own child that you otherwise would probably have never noticed, during the teen summits and that kind of thing. The way you help other children, the mom and her son actually having a conversation. So that's why I want to encourage you. And again, the thumbs and stuff going up like crazy and the hearts are going up like crazy as you were talking, is that I want you and our audience to understand, and the others that'll see this once it go on social media, is that we don't have time to play. You know this because that's what you're saying. Our children are on life support. And all of these people, and let me say it for you, Anthony, all of these people that think they are so important and think they have the answers, if they had the answers, they wouldn't need an Anthony.
Yes, sir.
Is that what I'm saying?
Sure.
But they are so full of themselves until they can't get out of the way. And I tell people all the time, if you get out of the way, we can help the children. But they think it's about them.
Right.
A lot of your principals, I can say it. A lot of your principals, when Anthony show up and you're talking about your program, they think it's about them. Your city council people, your politicians, when you show up to talk about helping the children, they think it's about them. And they'll try to put up all kind of roadblocks and things like that. Now, I have to share with you again, I understand because I'm in that arena. There are a lot of stipulations and things that are required, by the state and things that laws on the book. I understand all of that. But trust me when I tell you, my brother, you can get around, if we wanted to, we can get around all of that. Most
Okay.
people have heard of Joe Clark and Lean on Me.
Of
Okay.
course.
Right there in Los Angeles, you have Dr. George McKenna. Denzel Washington played the part of Dr. George McKenna. That was my boss.
Okay.
We did the same thing at Washington High School on 1600 Dinka Avenue, 1860 Dinka Avenue. And the movie is not about me, but it's about, and it's on Netflix, still on Netflix. It's titled Heart Lessons, and they'll see Denzel Washington on the cover, and it's titled Heart Lessons. And you'll see the things that we did and things that we worked through. But what it does not show you, it doesn't show you the neighborhood people that were volunteering, the Anthonys that were volunteering to help to turn these kids' lives around, the Antonettes that were volunteering to help to turn these kids' lives around and stuff like that. So I trust me, I didn't intend to talk this much, but you kept pushing my buttons in a positive
I
way.
appreciate you, man. I appreciate you.
My buttons in a positive way because I need to share this with you in an open forum because this is going to go all over the place once it hits YouTube and once it hits LinkedIn, etc. So that's why I wanted them to hear Anthony's story. So I'm going to shut up right now, and I'm going to ask you if you will show us that book again, show them the title so they can see it. If you will tell them how they can get the book, and you can give them some addresses and individuals and families that will be interested in getting in touch with you. If you can tell us how we can do that.
Well, the book is on Amazon. To be honest, I think I sold 4 copies because I have not pushed the book at all. For me, it was just to do it, put it to the side, and keep it going. And I just laugh about that part. But it's something that I did. I completed that. And I'm super proud of it. Like I said, the book is on Amazon. The Big Black Man, Food, Family, and Friends. You can get in contact with me through Leaders of Men Inc. at gmail.com is our email. Leaders of Men Inc. At .org is our website. I'm on different social medias, the LinkedIn, Facebook all the time because I am 57. I mostly Facebook on everything. But it's on the Instagram and those things. But I'm on social media, and you can reach me anytime. I have what you call it. I'm an open book, and anybody can reach me, and I'm always down to encourage, empower any youngster or any person that needs or that just wants to talk and wants to discover more about themselves. I believe everybody has a leadership quality. It doesn't matter if you're going into a gangster style or if you're going into the good side. You can lead which way. It's completely up to you. Life is about choices. Hopefully, you're trying to empower our youngsters and empower yourself. Like I said, I didn't read my first book until I was 40 years old. My second book was Malcolm X. First book I read was Sounders, a third grade book. Now I've read a lot of books now, especially my wife's ratchet books. The Riding Dirty on I-95 books.
Okay.
I've read a lot of those, but I tell you this though, I heard something the other day, and it says, oh man, it says, what do you say? You should learn to read, so you can read to learn. I thought that was super cool. You
Yes.
know what I mean? It was the simplest statement, but it was true because the
Yes.
more I read, the more I read books, the more I was learning. And to be honest, growing up where I come from, about men wasn't readers. The women, my mom and my sisters read. They read books all the time. But me and my brothers, no, we ran the streets. That's what we
Right.
did.
Right.
So but yeah, they can reach me anytime, leadersofmen at gmail.com, leadersofmen inc at gmail.com. That's us. And then check us out on Leaders of Men Inc. Leaders of Men Inc.org. And then most of my stuff is on Facebook though. So I would encourage people just to go to the Facebook, either Google Anthony McDonald or just Google Leaders of Men, and you'll see some of the things. I like to think it's some great things that we've done and that we're going to continue to do. So
Fantastic. Well, Brother Anthony, it has certainly been a pleasure to have you here, my brother.
Conference coming up January 11th, right? And last year we had almost 100 men in the room, and this year we're hoping to have more. We're talking veteran services, we're talking mental health, we're talking prostate cancer, we're talking how to be better fathers, how to be better husbands, how can we be a resource to each other, financial literacy. I call it like 360 degrees men. It's where a man can go in there, take off the mask and say, look, I'm going through it. I'm going through it. And there's not a man in that room that can help you. You know what I mean? We got some OGs in there that can help our youngsters, man, and youngsters that can help our OGs. So yeah, it's called a men's conference. And there's no color line, there's no financial line. It's just that when you come in that room, you can take the mask off. So I just want to share that with you.
You should have, brother. Now, where exactly is it held? And give us the dates and the times.
We are in Fairfield, California, and this will be January 11th from 1 to 4 p.m. And it's a luncheon right here in Fairfield. And you can email me at leadersofmeninc@gmail and get all the information there. It'll be on our website, and just hit me off like that. And like I said, all are welcome. All are welcome.
Brother Anthony, it's certainly been a pleasure. And again, on behalf of the Nobody Asked Me guys, I want to thank you for coming and talking with us tonight, brother. We're happy to have you here. So guys, listen, this has been the Nobody Asked Me Guy Show. I'm your host, Melvin Casey Lars. And as always, we encourage our new listeners to go to the Nobody Asked Me Guy Show on YouTube, like and subscribe. And we make a point of letting you know that this is a free subscription.